What if I told you that everything you thought you knew about the Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 9 reunion was a lie? Marsau Scott just dropped some serious truth bombs about what really went down with Carlos King, and let's just say it's not the version Owen wants you to hear. Shocking backstage drama, explosive confrontations, and a power move that could change everything. This is the real story they didn't want you to know. For weeks, fans have been buzzing about the Season 9 reunion, but what really happened behind the scenes is far more intense than anyone imagined. Marsau Scott, known for keeping his cool in even the messiest situations, has finally spoken out. His revelations are turning the entire narrative upside down. According to Marsau, what went down at the reunion wasn't just typical reality TV drama. It was controlled and manipulated. And at the center of it all, Carlos King himself. But why? What does Carlos have to gain by steering the storyline in a certain direction? And more importantly, what does he have to hide? In this video, we're diving deep into the shocking claims made by Marsau, dissecting the unseen power struggles, and uncovering why fans are now calling for Carlos to step away from the show altogether. If you think you've seen drama before, trust me, this is on another level. Stay tuned as we break down every bombshell detail. For years, Marsau Scott has been one of the most controversial yet level-headed figures on Love and Marriage Huntsville. While others have engaged in public feuds and social media battles, Marsau Scott has often remained calculated, choosing his words carefully. But this time, he's not holding back. During a recent conversation, Marsau confirmed what many fans had suspected for a long time. The Season 9 reunion wasn't just dramatic, it was orchestrated. He claimed that Carlos King played a direct role in shaping the narrative, determining which conversations got airtime, and even allegedly coaching certain cast members on what to say. Marsau didn't just hint at manipulation, he laid it all out. He revealed that crucial moments were edited out to protect certain people, while others were left completely blindsided by what was aired. He also made it clear that tensions behind the scenes were at an all-time high, with some cast members even threatening to walk off the set. The biggest revelation? Marsau suggested that Carlos has a personal agenda when it comes to who wins and who loses in the eyes of the audience. But why would a producer get so involved? What does Carlos gain from pushing certain storylines while suppressing others? And why are people suddenly questioning if his involvement has gone too far? Marsau's words weren't just a call-out. They were a warning. A warning that what viewers see on their screens is only half the truth. If his claims are correct, Carlos King may have finally pushed one of the strongest players in the game too far. Exactly what did Marsau say that has the internet in an uproar, and how did Carlos react? Stay with us, because things are only getting messier from here. The Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 9 reunion was already expected to be dramatic, but no one could have predicted just how chaotic things would become behind the scenes. Marsau Scott, usually known for his sharp wit and strategic way of handling conflict, is now coming forward with jaw-dropping details that could shake the very foundation of the show for years. Viewers have speculated that Carlos King, famed reality TV producer and mastermind behind some of the most talked-about unscripted moments, might be influencing the storyline in ways that aren't entirely fair. Now, Marsau is confirming what many have suspected. Carlos isn't just producing, he's playing favorites. According to Marsau, the reunion taping was highly controlled, with Carlos allegedly steering conversations away from topics that might damage certain cast members while amplifying narratives that would fuel drama. The biggest bombshell? Marsau hinted that Carlos personally intervened in what was being discussed, even going as far as feeding lines to cast members to shape the storyline. Here's where it gets even wilder. Not everyone was willing to play along. Marsau revealed that multiple cast members grew increasingly frustrated as they realized crucial parts of the discussion were being cut off or redirected. Some even attempted to push back, but according to Marsau, Carlos made it clear that he was in control. This level of interference raises major questions. If Carlos is manipulating the show's narrative to favor certain individuals, then who is really in control of the storylines? Are cast members genuinely allowed to tell their truth? Or is everything being carefully curated for maximum impact? Perhaps the most shocking revelation came when Marsau hinted at something even more concerning. He suggested that Carlos's involvement isn't just about creating drama, It's personal. Marcel believes certain people have been protected for a reason, while others have been thrown under the bus. Under the bus? But why? Some sources close to the show have even whispered that off-camera alliances are at play, certain individuals who have positioned themselves favorably with Carlos, ensuring their image remains intact while others take the fall. According to Marcel, this has been happening for years, but Season 9 was the tipping point. As tensions escalated, things took an even darker turn. Cast members started speaking out right there on set, challenging the way things were being handled. At one point, it got so heated that sources claimed security had to step in to maintain control. Now, the big question remains, who is really at the center of the controversy? And did Carlos finally push his cast too far? Marcel's revelations have already set social media on fire, but there's still so much more to unpack. What specific moments were edited out? Who is protected? And most importantly, will these explosive claims change the future of the show? Buckle up because this story is only getting started. As the Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 9 reunion taping continued, the tension in the room became unbearable. Marsau Scott wasn't the only one who felt something was off. Several other cast members were growing increasingly frustrated with what was happening behind the scenes. According to insiders, the moment cameras started rolling, it became clear that this wasn't going to be a raw and unfiltered conversation. Instead, it was a carefully orchestrated event, with Carlos King allegedly pulling the strings. Marcel, known for his business acumen and strategic thinking, had been watching closely as Marcel claims that Carlos dictated the pace and direction of the conversation. He says that anytime someone tried to bring up certain sensitive issues, particularly those involving Carlos's alleged involvement in the cast's personal lives, the discussion was immediately shut down. Either the topic was dismissed, redirected, or in some cases, people were flat out cut off mid-sentence. But what was Carlos so afraid of? What was he trying to hide? Marcel suggested that Carlos has been protecting certain cast members for years, ensuring their narratives remain favorable while others are thrown under the bus for ratings. It's no secret that reality TV thrives on drama, but this time it seemed less about the natural conflicts between cast members and more about a carefully constructed storyline being pushed forward. At one point, sources say that Melody Holt herself tried to interject, wanting to clear the air about ongoing rumors. But instead of letting her speak freely, it appeared that her words were being twisted to fit a specific narrative. Melody, a fan favorite who has been through some of the most publicized struggles on the show, wasn't going to just sit back and take it. Her patience had clearly worn thin, and for the first time, we saw her pushing back against the machine that had, for so long, controlled the show's direction. This wasn't just another reunion, it was a power struggle. The tension was so high that, at one point, several cast members got into heated exchanges, not just with each other but with production. Marcel revealed that there were moments when cast members were outright told to stay in their lane and focus on their own storylines, an indication that Carlos wanted to keep everyone locked into their assigned roles. But the cast wasn't having it. Kimmy Scott, another key player on the show, reportedly became visibly frustrated. She has always been one to keep her composure, but even she couldn't ignore the blatant control that was being exercised over the discussion. According to sources, Kimmy tried to call out the hypocrisy of the situation, questioning why certain issues were being avoided while others were being exploited for the sake of ratings. Then, the real bombshell dropped. Marcel hinted that there were conversations that had taken place behind closed doors, conversations where certain cast members. Marcel claims that some cast members were allegedly promised that certain topics would never see the light of day, but when the cameras started rolling, those promises were broken. Instead of keeping things balanced, it seemed as though Carlos was actively trying to pit people against each other, fueling existing tensions while keeping his favorites in the clear. At this point, the frustration reached a boiling point. Sources close to production claimed that the tension got so out of hand that security had to be on standby. While no physical altercations occurred, the verbal exchanges were intense enough that producers had to pause filming multiple times just to regain control of the room. And here's where it gets even messier. Some cast members reportedly refused to continue filming unless changes were made on the spot. Yes, you heard that right. For the first time in the show's history, cast members were openly challenging the way the reunion was being handled. They weren't just questioning each other. They were questioning the very foundation of the show's production and whether Carlos King himself had gone too far. But what does this mean for the future of Love and Marriage Huntsville? Could we see a major shakeup in the cast? And most importantly, will Carlos King finally be held accountable for the alleged manipulation happening behind the scenes? One thing's for sure, the Season 9 reunion isn't just a showdown between cast members, it's a full-on battle for control of the truth. By the looks of it, Marsau Scott is ready to expose everything. As the reunion chaos continued to unfold, it became clear that Carlos King was no longer just the producer behind the scenes. He was actively shaping the storyline right in front of the cameras, and the cast had had enough. Marsau Scott wasn't the only one speaking out. Other cast members started catching on to the subtle but undeniable way Carlos was steering the conversation. Anytime someone tried to bring up behind-the-scenes decisions or call out production inconsistencies, they were either talked over, dismissed, or redirected. The frustration in the room was thick, and the energy shifted from a simple reunion discussion to a full-blown confrontation about the very integrity of the show. At one point, an insider claims that Melody Holt herself decided to stop playing along with the charade. She had been through too much public divorce, business struggles, personal betrayals, to sit back and allow someone else to control how she was portrayed. She turned directly to Carlos and allegedly said something that left everyone in shock. Asterisk, if we're telling the truth, let's tell all of it. Asterisk, that statement alone caused an immediate reaction. The air was sucked out of the room. The tension between Melody and Carlos had been brewing for years, but now, in front of the cameras, it was about to boil over. Melody wasn't just addressing Carlos's selective storytelling, she was addressing the entire system of favoritism and manipulation that had been running the show for seasons. Fans have long speculated that certain cast members receive more protection than others, and now, it seemed like that speculation was finally being confirmed. Melody wasn't alone. Kimmy Scott, who had remained relatively neutral in the past, was visibly fed up. She turned to Carlos and reportedly questioned why certain cast members were constantly thrown under the bus, while others seemed immune to controversy. She pointed out that whenever Melody, Marcel, or even herself had personal matters aired out, it became a major storyline, but when it came to others, the conversation would magically shift elsewhere. This was a breaking point. For years, reality TV has thrived on drama, but what happens when the cast no longer plays along? What happens when they start fighting back against the very person pulling the strings? Sources claim that Carlos was visibly caught off guard. This was not the reunion he had planned. He had expected emotional reactions, intense arguments, and dramatic moments, but what he hadn't expected was the cast turning on him. Then the most shocking moment of the night happened. Marsau Scott, Marcel, who had been holding on to something major, finally decided to drop the bombshell. He reportedly turned to Carlos and said, asterisk, why don't you tell them what you told us off camera? Tell them why you're really protecting certain people. Asterisk, the room fell silent, and Carlos's face reportedly dropped. No one knew exactly what Marcel was referring to, but the way Carlos reacted said it all. There was something deeper happening behind the scenes that hadn't been exposed yet. So, what was he hiding? Theories started flying. Was it about certain cast members getting different contracts than others? Was it about who really had control over the editing process? Or was it something even bigger, something that could shake up the entire franchise? The energy in the room had completely shifted. This wasn't just a reunion anymore, it was a standoff. For the first time in the history of Love and Marriage Huntsville, the cast was collectively pushing back against Carlos King's control. And the question remains, what happens next? Because one thing is clear, the truth is starting to come out, and Carlos King may no longer be able to control the narrative. After Marcel's bombshell statement, the entire atmosphere of the reunion changed. This wasn't just cast members arguing about their personal drama anymore. It was a direct challenge to the very foundation of Love and Marriage Huntsville, and Carlos King was at the center of it all. For the first time, it felt like the cast had collectively decided that enough was enough. The tension in the room wasn't just about personal betrayals or relationships gone wrong. It was about power, control, and the manipulation happening behind the scenes. Carlos had built his reputation as a reality TV mastermind, but now his own cast was exposing the cracks in his empire. Carlos, caught off guard, suddenly found himself in the hot seat. For once, he didn't have a scripted way out. The cast was demanding answers, real, unfiltered answers, and he couldn't deflect fast enough. Marcel's statement had sent a ripple effect through the reunion. The entire set went silent. Some cast members sat in stunned silence, while others looked directly at Carlos, waiting for him to respond. Would he deny it? Would he admit to playing favorites? Or would he do what he does best, spin the situation to his advantage? According to insiders, Carlos hesitated before speaking, a rare moment of uncertainty from a man who always seems to have the upper hand. That's when Melody, who had been observing Carlos carefully, reportedly leaned forward and asked, "So, are you going to tell them, or should I?" Boom. The room erupted. The cast members who had been quiet before were suddenly engaged, whispering among themselves. What did Melody know that Carlos was so desperate to keep hidden? Was there a hidden agenda? Was the show rigged from the start? For years, fans have speculated that Carlos has protected certain cast members while throwing others under the bus. And if the reunion was proving anything, it was that this wasn't just a conspiracy theory, it was happening in real time. Some cast members consistently had their most personal, painful moments turned into storylines, while others seemed to walk away unscathed, no matter how much drama surrounded them. Now, the truth was beginning to surface. A source close to production revealed that certain cast members allegedly received storyline protection based on their relationships with Carlos. That means some stars had the ability to veto certain scenes, shut down conversations they didn't want on air, and even influence the editing process. Meanwhile, others, like Melody, had no such protection. And that's not all. Rumors are swirling that Carlos had allegedly coached certain cast members on what to say before cameras rolled. He knew what storylines he wanted to push and allegedly made sure they played out exactly as planned, even if it meant twisting the truth. Melody's final stand, she wasn't holding back anymore. If there's one thing fans know about Melody, it's that she doesn't back down. She's been through a messy public divorce, endless betrayals, and constant scrutiny from the show. But through it all, she's remained strong, choosing to reclaim her narrative and stand in her truth. So when she spoke at the reunion, people listened. She looked Carlos dead in the eyes and reportedly said, "This show was supposed to be about successful Black entrepreneurs uplifting each other, but you turned it into a circus. And now, you don't even have control over the chaos you created." Mic drop. Carlos was visibly shaken. The man who had spent years controlling every aspect of the show was now watching it unravel in front of him. And Melody wasn't done. She turned to the audience, the fans who had supported her through everything, and made one thing clear. "I'm done letting someone else tell my story." The crowd erupted. The cast members, who had been silently suffering under Carlos's control, suddenly realized they weren't alone. They had power. And for the first time in love and marriage Huntsville history, it wasn't in Carlos King's hands. But here's the real question. What happens next? Because if Carlos has been exposed, what does that mean for the future of the show? Will OWN step in and shake things up? Will Carlos be forced to step down, or will he fight back even harder to maintain his control? One thing's for sure, this is only the beginning.